This week's scripture over series is centered around waiting patiently, believing that God's promises will come to fruition, just not in our timing. And that's the hardest part of it all. I was reminded of that this week when I went back to read Abraham and Sarah's story. Um, God called Abraham to leave his family and follow him at 75 years old, and Abraham did that. Um, Throughout the time that God made a promise to Abraham and the time that it was actually fulfilled, something like 20 years went by. After the second time that God promised Abraham, like, I'm going to see this promise through, this will happen for you. Abraham and Sarah began to doubt that the promise would be fulfilled, and so they took matters into their own hands. And instead of God getting angry about this or turning his back on them and, like, wishing them good luck, since they took matters into their own hands and clearly didn't believe that God was going to come through, he reminded Abraham again for the fourth time, like, no, I said that I had a promise for you that I was going to fulfill, and I will do that. It's just that he was going to do it in his own timing. And so at nearly 100 years old, God fulfilled the promise he made to Abraham when he was just 75. And it's just such a great reminder that even though we become impatient and we take things into our own hands and we think that God has forgotten about us and that maybe he needs help in fulfilling a promise for us a little bit faster, because we want it on our timeline, not his, that he's in the waiting. He's going to come through. It's just going to be in his own timing. It's not going to be when we want or when we expect it. And even when we get impatient and when we make our own plan and take things into our own hands, he's not going to turn his back on us. He understands who we are. He understands what we need, and most importantly, when we need it. And so I hope that's a promise for you this week, regardless of what you may be waiting on. Maybe you're in a waiting season like me, and you're still just wondering, like, when God's going to come through for something that you're waiting on in particular. Maybe it's something with your health, maybe it's something with your job, something with your family, with school, whatever it is. Hold on to the promise this week that he hears you, he's there for you, he has not forgotten you, and he is in the waiting the entire time. We just have to make it a point to draw near to him and capture those negative lies when they come into our mind that maybe God has forgotten about us, because he has not and he will not.